what they become, watering holes with
The
fast.
community study hall.
Yes.
That's what they become.
Yeah.
As I mentioned yesterday, my experience in Polokwane on a Saturday afternoon, jam-packed with people studying, not there to
Yeah.
check out books.
Yeah, yeah. So increasing the books are going to become less, possibly, or not. Hopefully not. But the main value contribution to a local community would be a safe, increasingly important, high Wi-Fi access, relatively quiet with printing facilities, a one-stop shop. Interestingly, last night when I posted on my Facebook page, I posted something, and then the main librarian, the chief cook of, I think, Rhodes University, said, I must go to the Waukee Public Library. He says it's the best he's ever seen. So I just said, thank you, I will. But not necessarily. But interesting that
Yeah.
someone in South Africa just thinks
The
what
Milwaukee
you,
Public
yeah,
Library. Yeah.
what you have here is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and whatever. So the idea of, I've seen the way you engage with the laptops in the rooms and the iPad or the one iPad. I'm not sure security-wise with providing students with tablets, Jacques.
Yeah.
My personal digital scholarship, I use my iPad for tweeting, for updating my social network. But for creation of documents, I find that very
That's
hard.
Yeah.
And even engaging on the LMS, on various forms of it. I just
So
find
how do you find your laptop?
I've got an Air, so it's lightweight, and I'm
And that
okay.
works for you?
Yeah, and that works for me, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, but then the security issues about providing students with laptop as a part of their study package, we will have to flood the market to prevent huge theft.
Would it be feasible?
You will be
Would it be
killed for that.
feasible to put it as a requirement instead of as something you provide? That you need this if you want to study?
You will exclude.
In other words, a tablet, not this specific tablet, but you know.
I mean, but then on the other hand,
Because in a way, I understand the problem with the non-digital generation being very paper-bound. And I'm going to, for convenience sake, just ignore them for a minute, because there are students that are comfortably in a digital space. In other words, really read everything on screen. Now, with those students, by having the machine, they eliminate all the paper costs. And so the investment went into this machine, and then
you see, we had this assessment about 3 years ago. We had a visionary provost, or whatever you call him or her, that said we envision that our printing will become less, not more, due to students having more access. Okay. What is curtailing that is a whole debate on those that don't have. Okay, so we still print the same amount of study materials as part of, because that's what they pay for, and they still could get courier, whether they get it per se. They cannot opt out and get a cheaper price. Very interesting. That would have been a possibility. So if you choose not to have printed copies, you get it at a cheaper option.
yeah.
I have a gut
In other words,
feeling.
a la carte
Yeah.
presentation.
But then I think, again, like this situation where people who really need the printed copies is going to opt for the cheaper price,
Yes.
because they don't have resources.
And they will think they can actually print it on their own, and they're not realizing the cost of printing. And then that can actually become a more expensive option. Well, I realize I've got a younger partner that happens to be black, and I just see how he engages. He studies through UNISA. And I'm amazed he does everything on his phone.
Yeah, yeah. Now a tablet's just a little bigger.
It's a bit bigger. I mean,
So it's
okay, but he's not with all due respect, and James, I love you, he's not the type of student I am.
Yeah.
So in the sense of, I work with my materials. He would the evening beforehand do.
So would you see more as a digital native and you're a digital immigrant? Even though you're very proficient, but your grounding was non-digital?
I don't like the natives, immigrants binary. I look more for residents and visitors. And I'm a resident. I think I'm more of a digital resident than he is. I live on.
What about a mobile resident?
Mobile, but I also, I mean, I brought my iPad with me, adding weight to my backpack, and haven't used it once.
Oh.
So I've seen James use his phone,
Yeah.
and what I normally would use the iPad for, I now do here. Interesting, I had this ritual of going to work on a Saturday, on a Sunday, and then first have breakfast at the restaurant and then go to the office, and then my iPad was my go-to.
Yeah.
And I just leave the iPad at home, and while I'm at the table, I read my news. I do everything that I used to do on my iPad, I do on my phone. So I'm not sure how long tablets will survive. I'm not sure that's a
It's
go-to.
an open question.
It's an
Especially
open question.
with so many of you can't even call them laptops anymore because they're kind of, they're a
flip open,
tablet
they-
with a screen that can detach.
Detach.
Yeah.
So that's kind of converging too.
Mm.
And it actually, I'm really open to this whole
Mm.
concept. I use my wife as an example. She had her own little office in the basement, and then we remodeled the whole basement. And so everything got gutted there, and we had no office. Now, obviously, quickly I had to re-establish myself as as a professor with my little environment, with my desktop and so forth, to be able to do my business. But at that time, I bought her a smartphone,
Okay.
and she has not gone back to a computer.
Mm.
She buys everything she buys, everything she searches, all videos she watches. She does everything on her phone. And I'm just stunned to see that she totally, now she's not a, her use is somewhat different. And it's not to me necessarily native, non-native, it's just, I could do everything she does on that, but I've got more stuff than I do, and I do writing, and I cannot use a phone for writing.
Yeah.
But it's to me a little bit like what happened with cameras. So we had film cameras, high-end, professional, and then for people like us, go and take your tourist snaps. Then we got digital cameras. And that really has led to no one using film, high-end Hasselblads, except professional photography.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
even
become
that
a
is fading
niche
fast.
specialist thing.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And for us, this phone is good enough, convenient.
I've got a good camera, and I haven't taken with. I mean, it has some sort of a telephoto lens that I thought, oh, that's essential. And I haven't taken the camera with me on a trip, just weight-wise, especially if I have the iPad also.
Yeah, you can't have two things that you don't use that way a lot.
Yeah, and
So
then
the adoption factor is
I mean, these cameras are becoming better and better and better, and
it's good enough.
it's good
For
enough.
what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So I think the getting back to your scenario, Jacques, so UNISA, I do believe that if I design for this environment, a learning experience containing resources, not PDFs, but if I design a total learning experience, and this is my device, or any digital device, I design differently than when I design for printed study material.
And I think this is what you mentioned earlier, is we now are adding, because we still need to have PDFs that's printable for that part of the population, but now we're adding, we can't just port the PDF to this environment. We have to have a whole new way of
You see, and what
designing.
happens now at UNISA, so our instructional designers design the printed materials with graphic artists and everything. and that's PDF'd.
Yeah.
If there's
Become a
one.
verb.
Yeah.
And put on the web as learning resources.
Okay.
But this is such a very poor use of digital. I mean, the hyperlinks don't work in the printed copies. But if you design it for those hyperlinks,
Then you're
becomes,
blessed
I
with that.
mean, then you,
Yeah.
I mean, then the world is your oyster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that has cost. It has design implications, but it also has cost implications. We duplicating a process, and so we add on to the printed materials all the nice digital stuff. And then the worst case scenario is we also want students to print off the MyUnisa, the digital platform, if they want to print that.
Now, I want to add one variable layer to this. A friend of mine has got a project that he runs called eGranary.
Okay.
And what it simply is, it's a cached copy of the internet.
Okay.
Now, obviously not the whole internet, but selective parts of the internet. And many companies actually use that concept. For example, if you analyze your traffic in any work environment, and you notice a very high percentage of people hit this site, you say, well, if we can just cache it and have it in-house, then they just hit it here instead of having to fully go there. It's faster and it saves us bandwidth and all that. So he created this basically local library of the internet that he brings to your space. So he gives one interesting example. My numbers might be slightly off because of memory problems, but he mentioned Liberia, where there was a university that had no internet. To get internet, the only way they could do so was to get satellite. Now, to get satellite internet would cost the equivalent of 7 to 12 faculty members that you had to fire to get that. They decided it was worth it, they needed it, so they made that investment, and they had to let go of some people to have this. The only other problem was they've got electricity only 4 to 5 hours a day.